is a day of gratitude. I'm grateful for you. I'm honored to be your pastor on this celebration Sunday, the Sunday of joy. I don't have to remind you that when we, as people of faith, we sometimes stretch in challenging times, and these are not the best of times. But you have been and lived in faithfulness, and I'm grateful for your faith, and let's continue to move toward the mark and stretch in that faithfulness that God calls us to, and there will be joy in that journey. So it's a moment of gratitude for you and to God. And for this day of joy. Joy, the word, occurs in the Bible over 200 times. The word rejoice, related to joy, another 300. And the concept that might be described in other words, such as blessedness, but the same idea, occurs many, many more times. And so, on a 1,000-page Bible, you might have a joy coming up, or rejoice coming up, on every page. Virtually every page of the Bible has a note of joy. It comes up often, but it doesn't in ideal circumstances. Joy doesn't often just emerge when everything is going well. Take the Nativity story, for example. The story of Jesus' birth. The shepherds were out with their sheep, and suddenly the angels came to them, and they told them, "I have for you good news of great joy." And this will be, in the city of David, there is a Savior that is born tonight, who is Christ the Lord, and this will be the sign for you. This will be the evidence of this great joy. You will go to Bethlehem, and you will find a child in a warm and cozy and beautifully accessorized Bethlehem birthing room. And this child will be snuggling in this adorable blanket and bassinet that was given, featuring the Nordstroms from Nazareth, the ancient Nordstroms in Nazareth, because Mary had been given this beautiful birth shower, baby shower, by her friends in Nazareth. Well, not exactly. Instead of a baby shower, Mary probably received a cold shoulder. Instead of a beautiful birthing room, it was a barn. And it was not without central heat and without some of the medications and modern kind of conveniences that we become accustomed to that make birthing more humane these days. And without a bassinet or blanket, there was instead these strips of cloth. I wonder where she got the strips of cloth from. Maybe the ripping of a robe, or something she or Joseph were wearing. Strips of cloth and laying him in a feeding trough. A feeding trough. Because there was no room anywhere else. And all this, after, in the last trimester, an arduous journey from Nazareth to Bethlehem, which, if you walk that, it's going to take, in her condition, 7 to 10 days through rugged country, hills and valleys and difficult terrain. And we have in our Christmas cards a picture of her riding comfortably on a donkey. The scripture doesn't say that. We hope she might have had that, but she didn't. It might have been afoot. In the last trimester, at the whim of the Roman authority, who thought that this would be a great time for taxation of an impoverished people. Now that's not exactly what I would consider ideal circumstances. But the angel said to the shepherds, this will be the sign of great joy. Of great joy. Joy in the Bible is not necessarily associated with ideal circumstances. In Scripture, sometimes joy emerges. Joy is given in the midst of moments of life that are quite unexpected. Unexpected joy. Sometimes when a person hits a wall or hits rock bottom. In the midst of adversity. Peter, disciple of Jesus, opens his letter to people of faith who are struggling in times of adversity. And he says to them, in the midst of this, you rejoice, even though for now you go through various trials. Later he talks about it as being a fiery ordeal. They're going through some difficult times. And Peter says, in the midst of that, you rejoice. You rejoice. I don't know, Pete, forgive me, St. Pete, but I don't always associate adversity with great joy. I don't always come in and say, we got more bills today than we got Christmas cards. Rejoice. I don't always think about great joy when the dishwasher goes out and the refrigerator on the blink of the same day. It doesn't always give me cause of great joy. Or maybe if you're a student, sometimes it seems like the teachers kind of come together and plan every test on the same day. And they follow them and kind of help you get over it in the same day. It's not always in those times of adversity. You have a senior in high school and have the opportunity to look at the FAFSA. Some of you have looked at this. This is the free application. Isn't that nice that it's free? It's a free application for federal student aid. And if you go through this process and kind of share about your financial condition, they'll say, congratulations. You can contribute $40,000 a year to your students' education. Congratulations. Now that's if you walk to work every day, and if you live on one meal a day, you can do that. It's kind of a different perspective that they have than most of us have. But when you see congratulations, you don't necessarily want to just jump in and sing another rousing rendition of Joy to the World. It's not necessarily in adversity that we associate joy. Now, part of that for me is that I'm operating on a different definition of joy than perhaps the Scripture is talking about. Merriam-Webster defines joy as an emotion evoked by good fortune. So, joy for Merriam-Webster is based on circumstances. You get the present you want. As long as life is going your way, you have joy. Now, I think for most of us, if things are going our way, we prefer that, and that's probably cause for a little joy. But Merriam-Webster defines it that way. It's about the presence of life. Presence is the gift you've always wanted. The Bible, on the other hand, in the Bible, joy is often associated with the presence of God. Not a present as in something that is unwrapped, but God with us, Emmanuel, in all of life. In good times and in adversity. The presence of God, God with us, in all of life. Sometimes I miss joy because I'm operating on a different definition that's based on circumstance. Another reason I miss joy, and you may too, is maybe related to our DNA. Now we're all different people, and we're made differently, and fearfully and wonderfully made, all of us, but we're all a little different in how we process things emotionally. And I come from a long line, a proud family tradition of people whose initial response to adversity is to freak out. I mean, that is our response. Our family, you get our family together, and it's like a bunch of poodles you get together. It's just, it can be exciting and it can be fun, but it can be crazy. And so you've got that going. And while I have learned to respond, in kind of suppress that a little bit and respond to dignity with a little dignity. Inside this cool, collective pastor that you see is a panic attack waiting to happen. So that's just the way it is. But I found that my initial reaction doesn't have to be my ongoing reaction. In fact, it's counterproductive to stay in that place, to remain in that place. And we really can't deal in a creative way with adversity if we're locked in fear and locked in that initial response of panic or an initial response of freaking out. It wasn't President Kennedy at the time. He was candidate Kennedy. It was in April of 1959. He was giving a speech in Indianapolis when he was talking about crisis and adversity in life. And he, in that speech, indicated that the Chinese word for crisis or extreme adversity is made by putting together two characters in Mandarin, and that is danger and opportunity. Danger, panic, opportunity, how we deal with it. Now, I'm not sure, you can look that up yourself. I'm not sure that the candidate and later president was correct linguistically on whether those two characters are really what the Chinese mean. But I know this, is that people of faith through the ages have found that they somehow made it through the adversity of life when they got beyond the danger stage and moved to a place of opportunity, seeing God's presence in their lives. Being able to experience and say, God, where are you in this? You promised that you will be with me always. Where are you in the midst of where I am right now? And where are you in the midst of God's people? To be able to see one another as allies rather than adversaries. To be able to take down the defenses and be less defensive. To see creatively, what is God doing here in the midst of a situation perhaps I didn't choose or didn't want. But what is God doing here? What is God up to here? Where is Emmanuel? God with us in the midst of this. And somehow people of faith have found that relying on God's presence and being open to God's presence and being open to the presence of God's people, somehow we make it through. We make it through. And even experience a bit of joy along the way, surprising joy, unexpected joy. Because God is at work in the stuff of human life, not causing everything, but in all things working for good, working for redemption in the midst of it. That's where I see Mary in this story, is Mary in the midst of adversity, in the midst of maybe conditions that she would not have chosen for herself, and focusing on the gift, and focusing on the baby, Emmanuel, God with us. She's able to then seize the joy. Mary is one of those people in the midst of life. We find that when the shepherds come and give her the news of what they had experienced in the angelic announcement, she treasures these things and ponders them in her heart. Now, that's an important concept for us. Mary is able to somehow look for the joy, pan for the gold of life. In the midst of adversity, to look for what God is doing and how God is working, and how God can be redemptive in the midst of it. She's looking for the joy in the midst of life. And that's what I think Peter is doing. I don't think Peter is some Pollyanna. I think he's saying to people who are going through real struggles that in order to deal with real struggles, let's remember that God is at work, that God is giving you a new birth, a new hope, a future that is undefiled and unfading. Stuff of this earth doesn't last. The circumstances and trials are real, but you're going to get through them because God has given you God's presence and God's people. And if you have God's presence and God's presence through God's people, friends along the way, Mary made it through. And somehow in the midst of that, her life began to unfold in a richer way. Peter talks about the genuineness of our faith. But there's something about going through things knowing that God is with us that leads us into a deeper place. Not necessarily a happy-go-lucky place. What we might think of as joyful circumstances. But a place of a genuine life, an authentic life. To be more authentic people of God that God has called us to be. There's something about this journey when we can learn to make it through. Because adversity is just part of life. And so learning to make it through with God's help and with God's people is a very important part of our journey. I think about that sometimes, the role of adversity and what we would want to delete from our lives. Jonathan Haig kind of has this exercise.